Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to week 3 of our 4-part series on meditation. I'm Nancy Steck. I'm with the New Jersey Lawyers Assistance Program. The program's been providing free and confidential services to lawyers, judges, law students, and law graduates for 26 years, including educational programs such as this. This program, today's program, and the ones that we've been doing now that we're spending lots of our life on Zoom. I'm especially pleased that we've partnered with several organizations to bring this 4-part series to you. And that includes the Bar Association Special Committee on Lawyer Wellbeing, the Young Lawyers Division, the New Jersey State Office of the Public Defender, and the Assistant Prosecutors Association of New Jersey. Here with us from APA-NJ today is Renee White, who is a supervising assistant prosecutor in Ocean County, also the director of the Special Offenders Unit, and the APA New Jersey Vice President. She'll say a few words and introduce our speakers in a moment. I just want to do some quick reminders before we get started. One, please use the Q&A box if you'd like to submit any questions during Susan's talk today, and we will handle those at the end. We are recording this session as all the other sessions, and it will be available, so if you miss anything or can forward this on to someone who did miss today, please feel free to do that. You can find it, if you can find it, on our YouTube channel. And I'm going to make a special plea here today. In order for us to get an actual name for our YouTube channel, we need 100 subscribers. So if all 120 people who signed up for this course subscribed, we'd be there and we'd have a name that's findable. In the meantime, Noreen is going to put a link to the YouTube channel in the chat so you can connect directly through there. Also, I wanted to announce that on the 15th of July, which is the 5th Wednesday, we're adding, out of the goodness of her heart, Susan is coming back to do a question and answer for those of you who maybe have some personal questions or personal issues, struggles that are very specific to your practice that you want to run by her. So we're going to do a Q&A session on the 15th, and we'll send out information. If you've been part of this, you'll get the information as soon as we pull it together to get it out to you. And with that, Renee White, please take over.
Thank you, Nancy. As Nancy said, I'm Renee White with the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office. I'm also the Vice President of the Assistant Prosecutors Association for New Jersey. The APA-NJ is an advocacy and resource organization for prosecutors and DAGs in the state of New Jersey, and we are always here to support our prosecutors. With that, today we are at week 3 of this ongoing presentation on meditation. Thank you to New Jersey LAP for letting us co-host, co-sponsor. We're very proud to be here. This segment is for Whose Mind Is It Anyway? This session will address the influence of our thoughts and our awareness of our thoughts on us and how we can modify thought. You'll learn about the power of affirmations. And each one of these weeks will be recorded. So if you missed the previous 2, feel free to find it on New Jersey LAP's YouTube channel. So with that, I am so proud to introduce to you Susan Wilk, the founder of Focused Mind Dynamics, LLC, as well as No Place Like a Home, LLC. That's OM, not home. We thank Susan so much for being here with us today. She's got over 20 years experience as a practicing attorney. Her legal career began in DC in criminal appellate work. So for all you lawyers on the line, you know she must be one smart cookie. With that being said, she's had a glorious career, incredible experiences, but over the past 15 years, Susan has been doing stress management and meditation training for people of all ages, from all walks of life, to improve their ability to conquer stress in areas like their personal life, their workplace environment, academia, with regard to panic attacks, insomnia, eating disorders, chronic pain. Susan has been there and will continue to be there for people of all walks of life. Most recently, Susan has engaged with lawyers and assisting law school students in managing their stress and anxiety, and she's started to put together some integrative programming to help them do that. So we're so proud to introduce Susan Wilk, who's going to be with you today. So thank you, and with that, Susan.
Thank you so much, Renee, and it's an honor to be here, and I'd like to echo my thanks to the sponsors for these programs. It's really an honor to be here. To get started, I just wanted to go over a couple housekeeping things. I am an attorney by training and a certified meditation instructor, but I'm not a doctor. So when I talk about any studies that have been done and the benefits of meditation in physical, mental, and emotional ways, it is not to be considered as a substitute for any medical advice or medical advice in itself. So if you have any conditions that could be helped by a supplemental treatment with meditation as an alternative treatment, please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes. Also, if you have any kind of physical limitations when we do any of the breathing exercises or any of the meditations, when I ask you to close your eyes, don't close your mind, close your eyes. If it's uncomfortable for you to close your eyes, just pick a fixed point on the wall or something in front of you and gaze at that. If you have any limitations for sitting, just modify posture appropriately. And breathing, please don't overtax your lung capacity. It's something that you should modify. It's really more the willingness to do this more than the physical act of breathing. So we'll be talking today about whose mind is it anyway, and talking about how our thoughts, as Renee said, talking about how our thoughts influence the impact of stress in our lives. Most of us are intimately acquainted with stress through our practices, through being part of the judiciary. Whatever aspect of the legal practice we are in, it comes with stress. And we'll talk about ways that we can manage it. So to begin, before I get into that, I would just like to do a few very simple exercises that will come into play today. So to begin with, let's work with feeling the subtle energies in our bodies. So I'd like you to close your eyes a little bit, and we'll begin by just looking down and just sit relaxed in your chair and just focus your attention more towards your feet and take an inventory of how you feel. Where does it feel like your energy is going in your body? And now raise your gaze to look straight ahead and see if you feel a difference there. And finally, I'd like you to raise your gaze and look up. See if you feel any change in your energies, any change in direction of your energy. Just make a mental note of those things. And what that is, the subtle energies that I'm talking about, is that the first part was actually our subconscious, and that's a lower part of our energy. It's not really thoughtful, it's subconscious. When we look straight ahead, it's our conscious mind. It's feeling our senses, sensory intake. It's our thoughts, it could be our chatty minds. When we look up, it's what we call the super consciousness or the higher consciousness. And that raises our energy, as we've been talking about in the past few weeks, to the point between the eyebrows, to the seat of higher consciousness. And very often we can feel those changes in energy. And that's important as we go forward, but it's helpful when we talk about raising our energy to be able to feel that difference. Now, I'd just like you to do another short exercise. And for this one, I'd like you to close your eyes. Just take a few relaxing breaths. And I'd like you just to observe your thoughts. Don't engage them, just observe them. And in particular, I would like you to think about whether there's anything that you feel resistance around. Is there anything that's making you feel upset or angry that is causing some resistance or causing that kind of emotional reaction? Again, try not to engage with it. Just make a mental note of it. And keeping your eyes closed, let's just do a little intention setting for the time that we'll have together today. So I'd like you to just consciously release, as best you can, any outer concerns, any worries, fears, resentments, any stresses, any demands on you that happened earlier in the day, anything that went wrong, even things that went right. I'd like you to release it all. Release anything that you're anticipating for tonight. Just let it all go for the next hour that we're together. And I'd like you to bring your attention to the tip of your nose and just observe your breath. And as we've been doing these past couple of weeks, try to breathe with your diaphragm, breathe with your belly. Try to fill your lungs with air from the base of your lungs up. Just very gentle. Make your next inhalation a slow and gentle one. I'd like you to hold your breath for a few seconds and exhale. I'll repeat that 2 more times, so I'll keep count for you. Inhale slowly. Hold your breath and exhale slowly. And again, inhale. Hold your breath and exhale. Now allow your breathing to return to normal and gently open your eyes. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about stress. And a lot of stress comes from change in our lives. We want something to be different than what it is. And Mark Twain, one of my favorite sayings of Mark Twain is that he said, the only person who likes change is a baby in a wet diaper. But change is part of our lives. Now, I'm sure you've heard the saying that the only thing that's constant is change. And a little bit of stress that comes with those changes is a good thing. It can motivate us. And it's important to remember that stress comes from happy things and unhappy things, and yet our body responds the same way. Chronic stress has been known for a long time to bring certain health risks with it, and include increased risks of heart attack or stroke, hypertension, insomnia, digestive problems, anxiety, depression. I think we know the litany of the things that stress can do to us, but they've also done studies that the way we think about how stress affects us actually impacts how it actually does affect us. There was a study done by the University of Wisconsin several years ago. They found that the increase of premature death from chronic stress rose by 43%. But the other part of that equation is that it rose 43% for people who believed that stress was really bad for them and who admitted having a lot of stress in their lives. For people who had a lot of stress in their lives but didn't think it was really going to harm them, that it was part of life, their risk of premature death was almost down to 0. They had the lowest risk of everybody in the study. So today I'm going to be talking about what we can do to help change our thoughts about stress. And it's not as easy as just flipping a switch. And we know that the legal profession is one of the professions in life that has a very high statistic of stress and stress ailments, even outside, much higher than the general population. And in the general population, 75 to 90% of doctor visits are due to stress. So it's something that people feel bothers them. And it does bother them as a result. So because I think it's not quite as simple as just trying to shift and say, my body's responding this way and it's trying to help me. I mean, yes, we can say that, and a lot of us can be motivated by a little bit of stress. What I'd like to do today is go through some steps that we can take that will get us to that point in our lives where we can say, no, I think I'm learning to handle this and it won't affect me the way it did before. And of course, a regular practice of meditation is a wonderful way to help us mitigate the impact of stress. It changes our brains literally, it changes us emotionally, and it literally changes the way we respond to stress. And, you know, I have this woman down here and talk about other things that are stressing us out. Who knew that looking for toilet paper could become a stressful event in our lives? You know, and this pandemic is creating stress in and of itself, which is, I know, stating the obvious. And particularly now with the news coming out that it's starting to spike again. And it's also, we're grieving, you know, and grief causes stress, but we're grieving the loss of our lives the way they were before. We're anticipating what it might be like going forward. And all these things figure into the mix. So let's see what we can do about this. This is one of my favorite quotes by John Milton. The mind has its own place and in itself can make a heaven of hell and a hell of heaven. And it's so true. The power of the way we think cannot be overestimated. What I'd like to tell you is that you can manage your thoughts. You know, you're the thinker, you're not your thoughts. And that's one of the benefits that meditation has for us, is that it makes us more aware of our thoughts. You know, when we sit in meditation, when we sit in silence, a lot of people say, I can't meditate because my mind is so chatty, but that's part of being alive. It's not that your mind is so chatty that you can't meditate, it's that you're becoming aware of your thoughts. And as you meditate, your mind will calm down. It's a byproduct of meditation, and it's a discipline like anything else. You know, if you went into a gym, if we could do that now, but if you went into a gym, you couldn't bench press 200 pounds on your first day if you hadn't been working out with weights. And similarly, the first time you sit down for meditation, your mind may be really chatty. It may be chatty if you've been meditating for 5 years, you may get a bout of that. Matter of fact, it's probably very likely, because a chatty mind, as I said, is part of being alive. What we need to do to manage our thoughts, the most important thing is being open to changing our thoughts. You know, talk about willpower. When I talk about, you know, the center of our willpower is actually in the prefrontal lobes, the point between the eyebrows where we focus in meditation. But when I talk about willpower, it's not that kind of, I'm going to do this type of willpower. It's a willingness to make a change, a willingness to do these things. And when we approach it more gently, the chances for your success could be much greater. So we want to be mindful of our thoughts. We want to observe them as we did a little earlier. Just observe your thoughts without judgment. And when we meditate, there are going to be thoughts crossing our mind. And it's important just to observe them. And sometimes we get inspiration when we're meditating. And as I believe I mentioned last week, sometimes if you find that that's happening, it could be helpful to keep a little notepad and a pen next to you to record things. Because, you know, sometimes we forget. But most of the time, we just want to let the thoughts go by and kind of conduct our own internal audits as to what we're thinking. You know, is there a lot of resistance? Is there a lot of resentment? Is there a lot of fear? Is there a lot of happiness? Is there a lot of worry? So all these things can help us become aware of our thoughts. And once we're aware, we can do something to change it. And again, awareness is key. So, you know, are we judging things? You know, and we do. We so often, that's part of being human also. We judge things so often, and very often without all the facts. And I'm not talking about in our professional lives, but in our personal lives. You know, we could just see somebody could cut us off and we just think they're a terrible driver. Well, maybe they're rushing off to the hospital. Maybe they've got some other kind of emergency. It could also be that they're just a really bad driver and they're not paying attention. You know, we can be aware of our fear-based thoughts, because fear-based thoughts can really color so much of what's going on in our lives. You know, it can change our actions. It can change the way we speak with people and the choices that we make. Similarly, resentment and anger can do the same thing. Another thing we can do is to take worry fasts, which is basically just telling yourself, if you're really upset about something, just to say, you know what, for the next 15 minutes, I'm not going to think about it. or, try for half an hour. But if you're just starting, if it's something that's been really on your mind a lot and causing you a lot of angst, try to take at least 15 minutes and not think about it. Sometimes just taking that little break, when you come back, your mind will be refreshed. You might think of a solution that you hadn't even considered before. But it's best to start perhaps with 15 minutes, try to work up to half an hour to an hour, and try to take a whole day off sometimes if you can. Now, choosing our thoughts. As I said, we're the thinkers. We're not our thoughts. So what we want to do is be aware of what we're thinking, and we can choose to be happy. We can choose to be optimistic. It takes a little practice, yes. And one of the things that we can do, actually, they found that when we're feeling kind of down or negative, just spending 17 seconds, and I don't know how they came up with that figure, but 17 seconds, and then they said 28 is actually better, but 17 seconds is actually enough to shift your energy from negative to positive. So I'd like you to, I'm just going to do that with you for 17 seconds, and to think about things that you're grateful for. And I've had people sometimes say, nothing's going right in my life. I don't know what to be grateful for. Well, on a day like today, you might want to say air conditioning, indoor plumbing. Of course, you could always do puppies or warm chocolate chip cookies or sorbet, ice cream, gelato. There are so many things we can be thankful for, people that you love. So let's begin now, and just close your eyes and begin, and I'll let you know when the 17 seconds is up. Okay, that's the 17 seconds. So again, that's something you can do anywhere, anytime, and it doesn't have to be exactly 17 seconds, but just try to think of things that you're grateful for. Part of what it does too is make us realize what the blessings that we have in our lives, and takes our mind off perhaps what we don't have, what the lack is. Positive affirmations are really wonderful things, and we'll get into that. I'll get into practicing some of those a little bit later. They've done studies and found that when we use positive affirmations, it sinks into our subconscious, and we will actually take steps unconsciously, subconsciously, to make those things come to fruition. Now, I asked people, of course, I can't see a show of hands, but how many people work with affirmations? And usually one or two people put up their hands. But the fact is, if you get up in the morning and say, oh, I'm so tired, or I'm never going to get this done today, I don't have enough time, or this isn't going to work out, those are negative affirmations. So we want to try to replace those with positive affirmations. For example, if you think you don't have enough time today, say, I have all the time and energy I need to accomplish everything that's before me today. And it's good to practice, even if you feel like it's not true. Chances are it's not true. That's why you're using an affirmation. We want to bring that into our lives. But again, studies have shown that it does work. We were talking about resistance before. It's really important to accept circumstances rather than resist them. And the reason for that, it goes a little bit back to what Carl Jung said, is what you resist persists. And that's only part of the quotation. I don't have the rest of it in front of me, but part of the reason it persists is that we're not dealing with it, we're resisting it. And we can spend so much time and energy, particularly in our emotional energy, our mental energy, in resisting this thing, this person, this situation. And we can get stuck. It can prevent us from seeing the solution. So we want to really try to resist resistance. And Buddha said, Buddha, of course, was kept in a palace and wasn't allowed to see anything bad. And when he went over the wall one night, He saw people that were ill. He saw people that were dying. And he learned that things like that, illness and death that he saw, are indeed part of life, and suffering is part of life. But it's our resistance to some of these things that causes suffering. You know, the physical ailments, and it doesn't mean that you just ignore it or acceptance as, oh, well, I don't care. It's just not resisting it as much, because the resistance can create its own level of suffering. We want to develop self-compassion and self-acceptance. And I'll get into that a little bit more, a little bit later in the presentation. We want to cultivate non-attachment. And sometimes people think non-attachment means that you don't care. And again, this goes back to another Buddhist principle, is that non-attachment doesn't mean that you don't care. It's just you're not attached to the results. Because that, again, the attachment can create some suffering. But we're supposed to show up. We're supposed to do our best, come to things with integrity. And we do our best, and then we release the outcome. So that's non-attachment. And again, it's not that we don't care. It's that we've done our best and we've released the outcome. We need to silence our inner critic. And a lot of us have quite the inner critic that will criticize us for pretty much everything we do, including things that no one else would matter. Nobody else would think that, even give it a second thought, and we beat ourselves up over things. We look back with a lot of regret. If only I had done this, I should have known better. Well, sometimes yes, but you know, we need to learn a lesson sometimes and just move on and forgive ourselves. So we need to watch out for that inner critic. You know, it speaks quite loudly sometimes, and it can be harmful. The other thing we can do is to smile. And again, when you smile, the physical act of smiling releases feel-good hormones in our brains, whether we mean it or not, whether it's a forced smile or not. So remember, just be, as Yogananda said, be a smile millionaire. Thought replacement. We can, once we become aware of our thoughts and we think we're going down the rabbit hole, we can try to pull ourselves back and replace negative thoughts with positive thoughts. And this is an example that I think is pretty simple. And, you know, everybody's familiar with Murphy's Law, and I just wish I could erase it, because I've had so many people say that, you know, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And several years ago, I met a gentleman named Bijan, who actually at one point was Mr. Universe. And he's written a couple of books, but this is what he presented as Bijan's Law. Everything that can go right will go right. So if you find yourself thinking that things are going to go wrong, or you're apprehensive about things going wrong, make this an affirmation for yourself, that everything that can go right will go right. Might be something you'd like to say to yourself every morning. Because it's, you know, it's really a great thing to anticipate everything going right. And there's, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Loretta LaRoche, but she wrote several books also, and she used to talk about worrying. And she said, you know, you shouldn't worry about things that might happen. And again, that's part of the uncertainty is what causes a lot of stress. And she said, you know, most things we don't have control over. So if you worry about it and it happens, you're going to worry twice. If you worry about it and it doesn't happen, you've wasted a good worry. So don't worry. Easier said than done, I know, but helpful to keep these things in mind. So before I get into this, I just would like to talk a little bit about stress and life. And this is an analogy that Yogananda, who is the person who brought yoga and meditation to the United States 100 years ago. And it's this form of meditation that he brought that I'm extending to you. And among the other practitioners of this form of meditation, as I mentioned before, were George Harrison, Steve Jobs, Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer. And one of the things he talked about when he talked about stress in life and the hardships of life, he said, if you think about your life as a movie, he said, if you think that you're sitting in a theater and watching on the screen, and he said, from the projector above comes light and shadows. And in a way, that's what our lives are, lights and shadows. And he said, if you went into a movie theater to watch a film and everything went right for the hero or the heroine, they had no problems, they were always healthy, they always had enough money, they were always employed, they had beautiful families, they had supportive families, they had spouses that were great, they had beautiful children, everything was perfect, you'd probably walk out of the movie. You'd be bored. But when we go and see a movie and the protagonist has to deal with all kinds of challenges and overcome all kinds of struggles, you think, wow, this is a great movie when you walk out and they've overcome it. And that's kind of the way we need to look at our lives, that we are going to have stresses, we are going to have challenges, we are going to have obstacles to overcome. And yet that's part of life. And if we look at it, not so much as a problem, but an opportunity to learn something, to expand ourselves, it shifts it. You know, sometimes we don't even see it at the time, but when we look back at it, we've learned so many lessons. And I think who we are as people gets stretched sometimes by the hardest things in our lives. I know when I was in my 20s, when my mom died very suddenly, and I remember thinking not too long afterwards, it was such a blow that it really made me much more compassionate. And it gave me a level of understanding for what people were going through, whether or not it was a loss of someone that they loved. But I remember wishing that I could have gotten there some other way. But it's those hard lessons, it's the hardship of it that really expands us, that really opens our hearts and our minds. Okay, so talking about when we're stressed and we're in a situation where the fight or flight response has been kicked in. You know, it could be, and again, this is something that the brain evolved to protect us, yes, but it was thousands and thousands and thousands, if not millions of years ago, when we were physically threatened. You know, our heart rate increases, our blood pressure increases, blood goes to our extremities, stress hormones like adrenaline, cortisol are all streaming through our blood. But now our brains haven't kept up with the fact that we're perceiving a threat, but it's not a physical threat. We still respond the same way. So when we find ourselves in a situation where we are really stressed, what do we do? Well, these are things that we can begin with. First thing we want to do is try to calm our minds. And the past couple of weeks, we practiced breathing exercises. And even even as briefly as it was earlier in this session, just doing that little bit of breathing exercise, that measured breathing, triggers a relaxation response in the brain. And remember that as the brain goes, so goes the breath. So when we get stressed, our breathing gets more shallow and more rapid. But as the breath goes, so goes the mind. So when we start doing these breathing exercises, we can actually help calm ourselves down. So we want to employ our breath. And we can do a breathing exercise consciously with each exhalation. We can exhale agitation and inhale calm. And when we do that, we try to leave our breath out as long as it's comfortable, and breathe in when our bodies are ready to. And try to direct calmness to our hearts. A lot of times, you know, the way we respond to stress is not an intellectual process. We're responding with emotion and from habit. And that triggers the emotion about perceiving it as a threat to us, whether it's physical or not. You know, it could be an email, it could be a letter, it could whatever. But what we do is try to, all the emotions in the heart, So we want to, when we inhale, we want to think of calm and kind of direct that calm and that breath to the heart. And that's, it's something that when we practice it, we can just focus on the heart center as we're breathing. And inhaling and exhaling slowly and gently will calm us down. And the next thing we want to do, if we, assuming we're in a place where we can do this, is to focus the attention at the point between the eyebrows. Because what we want to do is raise our energy. We want to shift our energy from the emotional center of the heart. We want to override that upset, override the habit of responding this way. And if we touch the point between our eyebrows to help us focus, even holding our fingers there for 30 seconds will actually help us relax. And again, we want to try to bring that energy up, as we've been meditating, to put your focus at the point between your eyebrows. That actually brings our attention back up, stimulates the prefrontal lobes. That's a center of creativity. It's a center of willpower. It's the center of well-being. So it will help calm us down. But when we first respond, we engage the limbic system, which is the most primitive part of the brain. And that's what responds with the agitation. So we want to try to disengage that and bring our attention up and focus at the point between the eyebrows. And the next thing we can do is call on the divine, depending on your spiritual beliefs. If God or the universe, or however you conceive of the divine, if that's part of your belief system, call on that and know that you're not alone. If that's not part of your belief system, just call on your higher self, your own internal intelligence, your intuition. As Abraham Lincoln said, trust yourself, you know more than you think you do. So we want to call on that higher part of ourself, or the divine spark within. And then to listen, to ask, what's going to happen? What are the possibilities? What can happen now? A, B, C, D, what can happen? And we could also ask ourselves, is this the way I'm responding right now? Is that the only way with the stress? Can I calm down? So we want to do that. And when we ask, we want to listen for a calm answer, kind of a quiet whisper within. And then we know that's the intuition. If we hear kind of like our own voices screaming back at us or something like, oh my God, this is awful, that's not intuition. That, again, is the limbic system. That's kind of the primitive part of our brain responding with agitation. And then what we want to do is choose our mindset. Do we want to respond with an emotional response, or do we want to respond calmly? And that's, I think most of us would say that we'd like to respond calmly. And if we give ourselves a chance to relax with our breath and focus at least for 30 seconds at the point between the eyebrows, kind of turn within to try to seek calm and help, and then say, I don't want to respond from emotion. I'd like to respond from a place of calmness, from my center. We can do that. And again, part of the way we can get there is by practicing the steps that we've been going through over the past few weeks to help us cultivate the ability to be able to choose that. And finally, we want to take our energy and put it into some kind of action to help resolve the situation. It may just be writing down some ideas. It may be making a phone call. It depends on the situation. And it may not be that you need to act right away. Maybe you can take some time to reflect. And it's also important to say sometimes the stress is of a high enough level that we really need to ratchet it down. And in those instances where stress is really, really high, it's okay to say that. And it's okay maybe to get a pint of Ben and Jerry's and crawl under the covers and watch a movie. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes or take a nap. Sometimes it's really too much to deal with, you know, by thinking about it. We really just need to take time off. And again, that's perfectly fine. Now, this is something we went over in week 1, but I thought that it's worth repeating because these are things that support us in changing the way that we handle stress. One of the things, again, you know, I'll just go through them fairly quickly, is surrounding yourself with supportive people. And companion animals are amazing also. They, just the physical act of petting a dog or a cat lowers our blood pressure. Do the relaxation and breathing exercises. We'll practice the relaxation exercise again in a few minutes. And the breathing exercises, we have the diaphragmatic breathing, and we have the measured breathing that we can do. Next week, we'll practice an advanced technique that it's advanced because we need to practice it a little bit longer, and it's a little bit more involved. So we'll do that next week. Getting adequate sleep and rest is important. And one of the things that we can do is before we go to bed at night is to mentally build a bonfire and throw everything onto that bonfire, good and bad. All the good things that happen, just release everything from the day. And if you're anticipating something for tomorrow and you're a little worried about it, you can throw that in the bonfire too. And as an alternative, you can also think about the way you'd like it to go. Just picture it going smoothly. Picture the resolution you'd like to have. And again, then just release it. Just release it. Toss that into the bonfire so that your mind is clear at night. Hydration is critical when we're stressed, because when we're stressed, our bodies dehydrate a whole lot faster. And if we're only 3% dehydrated, it impacts our mental functioning. So drink a lot of water. If you drink coffee in the morning, or coffee during the day, be aware it's a diuretic and compensate for the fact that not only are you losing the fluid of the coffee, but it's also draining more water from your system. So try to compensate for that. A really good thing is to keep a glass of water next to your bed and drink that when you wake up in the morning. And this time of the year, we can eat some water. We have such nice summer fruit, particularly around here. We have peaches and melons, and watermelons and berries, and all of that helps us hydrate. There are foods that can actually help our bodies fight off the impact of stress. I'll provide in the next week or so, provide a handout on that, but it includes things like brown rice and quinoa, nuts, blueberries, oranges. My favorite is dark chocolate, at least 70%, 85% is even better, 85% and higher actually reverses cortisol in your bloodstream. So there are things we can do. Eating turkey or chicken can help us calm down because of the L-tryptophan. So, you know, there are ways we can support ourselves physically. Laughing is a great way to actually not only release tension because it exercises our stomach, but it releases some feel-good hormones in our system. Exercise, of course, is wonderful. We know that. Connecting with nature helps us to be grounded. And walking in barefoot in the grass is an amazing thing. Walking in the woods can be great. Listening to calming music, classical music is great. It actually helps our brain to relax, but anything that's calming. Rock is not probably what you want to listen to, alternative or otherwise. And of course, if you feel overwhelmed, or if you feel the need to self-medicate, or if you have any thoughts of harming yourself, please reach out for help. Please, you are valued. You have gifts to give this world. Please ask for help. And one of the things that we need to do is to be a friend to ourselves. And this, again, goes to that internal critic, because we are so prone to beat ourselves up and to be hard on ourselves. And that really gets us nowhere. You know, it's time to, and I was accused of this myself. This is why I say it. One of the when I was working in-house, we had a situation with a serial litigator who became a over 5% shareholder and was threatening to bring suit, and wanted us to do all kinds of things that not only were unethical but illegal. And outside counsel actually told me that I was beating myself up too much, and suggested that I drop out of the Self-Flagellation Society. So I'm passing that along to you. If you are part of this Self-Flagellation Society, get out. It's not worth it. It really, it's counterproductive. Beating ourselves up literally gets us stuck. We spend too much energy, and when people say hindsight's 20/20. Sometimes I wonder if hindsight's a little myopic. I don't know that if it's so perfect. I think we tend to focus on the thing that we wish we had done, and we don't know that that would have worked. But we need to silence that inner critic and the voice of the ego. The ego can say, "Don't put up with that. Why did that? Don't let him say that to you. Don't let her do that." And then you speak up or send an email, and then your ego could say, "I can't believe you did that. Don't you think you overreacted?" So we need to silence all that. And that's where meditation comes in, that we connect with our own highest potential. We connect with our highest self. We go to the point of higher consciousness, and we think differently. We become aware of these thoughts, and we can release them. Now, going to the areas of resistance, some of the things that may have come up for you before when we were talking about resistance, it's just to notice those and try to stop resisting them. Maybe do something about it, or and it depends on the circumstances. Sometimes it's just a matter of letting it go. It could be somebody who pushes all our buttons, and we just have to stop letting them do that. Sometimes we can visualize kind of like a force field between us and that other person, so that they can't, sometimes I feel like we have a big button here that the person can push, and we just want to stop that. It could be whatever kind of dynamic is going on in the relationship. You just want to let it go. Also, never ever identify yourself with momentary flashes of errors. We all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. And if we look at our mistakes as an opportunity to learn, Yogananda, I read somewhere that he wrote that in failure, the seeds of success are sown. So when we do something, we feel that we failed, if things didn't work out the way we wanted, just learn from it. And there could be, as you said, seeds of success in that. And again, nobody's perfect. We need to forgive ourselves. And I had, my great Aunt Mary used to say, nobody's perfect, but we are this close. So, try to not take yourself as seriously sometimes, and accept yourself the way you are. Your strengths, your weaknesses, your limitations. We're human. We have limitations. We do the best we can at the time with what we know at the time. It doesn't always go the way we want. And a lot of times there are big things riding on it, but we do the best we can. And that's, again, where non-attachment comes in. And we can't hang on to guilt. All these things are really unhealthy for us, and they generate a lot of stress. So we want to affirm our strengths and our talents. And remember, we wouldn't have gotten as far as we did without strengths and talents. This is not an easy profession. We're tenacious people. So, give yourself credit for getting where you are. And again, don't beat yourself up too much. And the important thing is to develop and practice self-compassion. We need compassion for other people too. But as we meditate, that's a natural outgrowth of meditation practice, is compassion for ourselves and for others. And to quote Buddha again, he said, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but you, as much as any creature in the universe, you are deserving of your own compassion. And, you know, that's something we're so quick to beat ourselves up. Try to be compassionate with yourself. Okay, now what I'd like you to do is close your eyes. We're going to do a visualization. And I'd like you to sit with your feet on the floor, your hands at the juncture of your legs and your abdomen, palms up, your shoulders back, back straight. Open your heart center. And have chin parallel with the floor, with your eyes closed. Going to bring your attention to the point between your eyebrows. Just take a few deep diaphragmatic breaths. And I'd like you to consider the things that you're resisting or things you think might be holding you back, things that are obstacles, things you'd like to release. And I'd like you to picture those things as black balloons that are floating around you. You could have one, you could have several, it doesn't matter. Could be resentment, it could be fear, worry, not being able to sleep at night. Could be an eating issue. Just picture any of those things just floating around you like black balloons. And now I'd like you to visualize yourself holding a big, long pin, like an old-fashioned hat pin, several inches long, and I'd like you to puncture each of those balloons. And as you do, I'd like you to picture the pieces of the balloon just disintegrating in front of you. Just disintegrating and evaporating, just gone. And now in their place, I'd like you to think of qualities that you'd like to bring into your life, like self-compassion and self-forgiveness, self-love, more laughter. And picture those things as beautifully colored balloons. And see them all coming together and forming a hot air balloon, the fabric of that hot air balloon. Just visualize yourself being carried away by all those wonderful things. Strength, concentration, clarity, whatever. Love, laughter, courage. And just picture as if this balloon is carrying you to a place where those things don't bother you anymore, where you're able to deal with them. Just picture yourself free of all those negative concerns. And take a moment, very gently return your attention back to the room. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. these are some sample positive affirmations. And of course, you could always create your own, but these are just a few suggestions. And starting with the one that I mentioned before, I have all the time and energy I need to accomplish all that is before me today. I am calm, relaxed, and competent. I always think and speak clearly. I am healthy, I am well. I am prosperous and spiritual. I learn from every experience and I succeed in everything I do. I release the past. What I do today will create a better future for myself. So it's just a few examples of things we can use as positive affirmations. You know, they're things, they are statements that are in the present tense and that represent things that we'd like to bring into our lives. For example, I work with people I truly like and respect and who like and respect me. So these are things that you can repeat to yourself anytime through the day. And when you make it part of a meditation practice, actually it's recommended that you bring them in at the end of the meditation after you do a relaxation exercise, a breathing exercise, spend a little bit of time practicing a technique like last week we did the mantra meditation or visualization. You know, when you do that, and then if you have a moment or two to sit after that to bring in the affirmations. Of course, you can practice them anytime. You don't have to make them part of a meditation, but if you are, you know, that's when our minds are most receptive, is when we've had that time to relax, calm our minds down, calm our thoughts down. So we're more able to absorb the positive aspects of that. And again, as I mentioned, they've done studies where our subconscious actually will grab a hold of these things and do what's necessary to bring them into fruition. Shifts our thoughts. So what I'm going to do now is actually lead you in a visualization. So I'd like you to close your eyes, and at the end, I'm going to bring in an affirmation. So we'll begin. It's going to involve picturing being in the ocean. If this bothers you to think of being underwater, just picture yourself standing on the shore and looking out at the ocean. And I'd like you to, again, sit with your feet flat on the floor, and your back either away from the chair or scoot all the way back so that your back is straight and supported. Your hands at the juncture of your hips and your abdomen, palms up, shoulders back, so we open the heart, chin parallel with the floor, and eyes closed. And we'll begin by doing a few rounds of tensing and releasing our muscles. We're going to start in a way from our feet up to our necks. We're going to tense the body. We're going to start the intensity low, medium, high. Hold that for a few seconds as we inhale. And then we're going to exhale through the mouth forcefully. And then relax the body as we do that. We're going to do that 3 times. Now, the idea is to tense the body until you vibrate, because this actually will grab the tension that we hold when we're stressed, that we hold in our muscles, and help the body release it. So we'll do this with our eyes closed. Just take a slow, deep breath and exhale as completely as you can. And we'll begin. Inhale slowly, tense the body from your feet all the way up to your neck. Hold that tension till you vibrate, and exhale. 2 more times. Inhale, tense and vibrate, and exhale. Again, inhale, tense and vibrate, and exhale. Now allow your breathing to go back to normal. And we'll just do a couple rounds of diaphragmatic breathing. Again, we'll breathe with the belly. We'll inhale slowly, filling the lungs from the base of the lungs up to the top. as best you can. Again, do not stress your lung capacity. Just do what's comfortable for you. So we'll exhale and inhale slowly, bringing the air all the way up to the top of the lungs, and exhaling in reverse. And inhale. And exhale. One more time, inhale. And exhale. And allow your breathing to go back to normal. Gently bring your attention to the point between your eyebrows. Behind your closed eyelids, gently elevate your gaze. Again, this helps our minds stay focused and also helps keep the attention at the point between the eyebrows, the seat of our higher consciousness. Let's begin by visualizing yourself in a boat on the ocean. It's a small boat and you're out there on your own. And the water is calm, just very gentle ripples on the surface of the water. But as you sit in the boat, the weather starts to change and the waves get a little choppy. Some of the waves have white caps. You're starting to get a little concerned. Now the weather gets even worse and the waves become rather high. A storm is coming and the waves are starting to crash around you. And you're starting to again feel that sense of worry. Now I'd like you to visualize yourself very gently descending into the depths of the ocean, heading toward the ocean floor, leaving the crashing waves behind you. Know that you're perfectly safe. And as you approach the ocean floor, you look around and you see that the sunlight is gently streaming through the water. You can see sea life, fish, plants, crustaceans. There's a lot of beauty around you. But the thing that's most impressive is the calm, the quiet. You can hear the gentle sound of the water. It's just beautiful and quiet. It's peaceful. Allow yourself to feel that peace, to absorb it, to draw it into yourself. And if your attention wanders, very gently bring it back to the point between your eyebrows. And now keeping your attention at the point between your eyebrows and still feeling that peace, I'd like you to take in this affirmation. I am neither the ripples at the surface of the sea, nor the crashing waves. I am the calm of the ocean deep, unaffected by mighty surface storms or superficial change. I am neither the ripples at the surface of the sea, nor the crashing waves. I am the calm of the ocean depths, untouched by mighty surface storms and untouched by superficial change. I am neither the ripples at the surface of the sea, nor the crashing of stormy waves. I am the calm of the ocean depths, unaffected by mighty surface storms or superficial change. I am the calm of the ocean deep. Just mentally repeat that to yourself. I am the calm. And now bring that sense of calm deep into your mind and your heart. Realize that it is inside you, it always was. All you have to do is reconnect with it. Very gently return your attention to your room. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. And that is the end of the presentation for today. I've put up my contact information. If you have any questions or comments or want to contact me for any reason, please feel free to do so. And if we have any questions now, I'd be happy to answer them.
And you can, again, submit them through the Q&A box. And if not, you feel free to hold on to them. Oh, here's one that popped up. Hold on to them until next week. Again, it was a thank you, very helpful. Someone who had to leave early also commented that everything that you've been doing has resonated with her. So thank you very much to Susan.
Grateful.
And the YouTube, we will send out with the next notification for this meeting in an email. We're also sending a notification with the attachment that Susan talked about earlier. So the connection to the YouTube will be there, but you can find it on our webpage, njlap.org. And if you would like to email me directly, nancys@njlap.org, I'm happy to send it to you as well. Again, thank you and love from Chile today. Very helpful, wonderful feelings. Thank you. And thank you for the empowering session. How many minutes should one meditate? This question.
Well, I would say it all depends on you. What I advise if you're starting is to start with 5 minutes a day. If you can do twice a day, it's great. Morning is great. Again, before you check emails or anything else is great. Because once I think we start checking emails or text or our phones, our minds off to the races, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to meditate. Optimal time is 10 to 20 minutes twice a day, and then trying to fit in a longer meditation once a week. But if I always say, if you can do 5 minutes a day, that's great. If you can't do 5, try to do 3. If you can't do 3, do 2. But the important thing is that you do create a routine. And actually, I was thinking about this today. We really need to almost fight sometimes to make time in our busy lives. There's so much coming at us now to try to make time to carve out this time to meditate for ourselves. So I hope that answers your question, but I would say start with 5 if you can do that.
And another thank you that this is very grounding. And just one final reminder to everybody that we will be sending out an email with Susan's handout that she mentioned earlier. And again, there will be a link on there to the YouTube channel. Can you get that? I'm really encouraging you to join our YouTube channel so we can get a real name and you can find us much more easily that way. Any other final questions? And there's a note there from Noreen about clicking on the yellow highlighted link at the top of the page on our website. And again, another final thank you. And another final thank you, Susan.
Wow.
And everybody
You're
have
welcome.
a
Thank you. It's
wonderful
my pleasure.
weekend, 4th of July. Stay safe, and we'll see you back here next week. Take care.
Okay, bye everybody.